In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the FLAFFL House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today is Monday, October 3rd, and this is the FLAFFL House Fantasy Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kevin Cotillo. You can find me on Twitter or on the Fantasy Life app as @WallyCentral. I have Sal Lito here with me as usual. You can find him on Twitter as @LitoSal, and of course on the Fantasy Life app as @Sal33. What's up, Sal?
Hello, sir. How do you?
I do well, I think. Is that what you're looking for there?
Have you recovered from yesterday?
I don't want to talk about it. Let's continue on to our second co-host, Mr. Steve Marcus. You can find him on both Twitter and Fantasy Life app as @SidSkeet. What's up, Steve?
Oh, not a whole lot. I, too, am very happy that you made it here. I was a little worried we didn't hear from you for a while yesterday, but you have resurfaced, and it's just good to know that you're okay.
What happened yesterday?
I appreciate that. Yes, yesterday I was at the Patriots game, the abysmal, horrible, worst game I've ever been to in Gillette Stadium, Patriots game. It was a shutout. They lost 16-0. The defense actually played okay. Certainly good enough to win with what should be our good offense, but apparently Jacoby Brissett is not good at football.
He looks like he forgot how to play from the last time we saw him.
He did. No.
Rough.
I think the running game really masked a lot of things for him the last time. So we certainly need someone coming back, but luckily for us, we have that happening this week. So I think we'll be okay.
Hey, can I say two things?
Well, yeah, I guess.
All right, I want to talk to two moms out there. First, Steve's mom, Miss Marcus. I would like to send my sincerest apologies for telling Steve to smack you a couple weeks ago. I know that you're a listener, and we really greatly appreciate you downloading every week and not being so fed up with Steve at this point that he's still willing to listen. Yeah. And also to my mom, today is her 66th birthday, and she just got out of the hospital last week and is doing much better. So to my mama, I love you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mrs. Lito.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And Steve,
yes,
I'm shocked that Sal actually said this to you about your mom. So if I had known,
are you shocked?
No, I guess not. But if I had known, I think I would have said something. I did not know.
Yeah,
so.
You were not here, which is probably why you felt so brave to say it.
That's probably why. Yeah, because you're a pushover, so you can say anything to you.
Of course, exactly.
Right.
Oh, well, I feel like I'm so totally being called out for the end of the show today.
Yeah. Listen, we got a lot to get to tonight, so we get to it. First off, though, I want to let everyone know that a couple of things. First off, you should definitely go check out FLAFFLhouse.com if you haven't already. We got great stuff coming up there daily. Good content every single day about everything you could possibly want. Waiver wire pickups, trade columns. We got game recaps, we have game previews, we have all the normal stuff, and then some we let Sal write a couple of things every once in a while as well, so that's good. You should check that out. And then I also want to let Steve announce a little falafel news.
Yes, so starting next week, we are changing up our release schedule, and we will actually be having 3 podcasts come out each week, and they will be released every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So no longer just 2. We are going to get 3 episodes in every single week. So, really looking forward to that. There's just so much going on that there's just more to do. We got more to do. So we're expanding it, and we're going to be pretty busy.
Sal keeps telling us that the people want more Sal, so we're going to give that to you. Please let us know if it's not the case, because we're happy to let him talk less.
The people want what they want.
All right, let's. So tonight we're going to go through some news. We are going to go through. We're going to let Steve actually run through some game reviews from this past weekend. A lot of stuff going on. Lots to talk about there. We have a little bit of a game, I guess you could call it, where Sal's going to go through some guys you might want to start believing in and some guys you might want to start moving on from. We'll give you a couple of names for the waiver wire, and then we will finish it up with the finishing thoughts. But for now, let's get started with a little bit of news. And of course, the number one item on the news report today is that Tom Brady's suspension is officially over. He was in the building in Gillette Stadium today. It is time.
So does this mean he's not a cheater anymore? It's official?
Wow. I'm not even going to dignify that.
Oh, man. After watching the game this weekend, I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait to have some fantasy production out of my Patriots players because it just hasn't been there so far. So bring it on. I'm happy to have him back.
And for the record, I like Tom Brady. I really do. I have no problem with Tom Brady, though. I just don't like Kevin.
That's fair. That's fair. I can't tell you how many people have said those exact words. So, look, I do think it is fantasy relevant just because of the boost that everyone else gets. We talked about this a little off the air. Rob Gronkowski should finally actually be relevant. Julian Edelman might have a game here and there where he's relevant, and
that would be nice.
All of your Patriots get a little bit of an uptick here. So I'm excited about it, obviously, as a fan. But from a fantasy perspective, I think a lot of people are looking forward to it. In real news, though, Cam Newton is in the concussion protocol. He took some nasty hits. They're expecting him to play Monday night against Tampa Bay, I think, although I don't know how you can really expect how a concussion is going to progress. But at least it's Monday night, so he gets the extra day. I don't know. I don't think they can win anything with Derek Anderson. Do you?
That offense moved better with Derek Anderson than it did with Cam Newton on Sunday. Here's the problem. It's obviously Derek Anderson is not Cam Newton, right? But I think that the offense has become too much about Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton, who's a guy, I really love Cam Newton. I'm not one of these people who badmouths him and says he's full of himself. I love the way he plays. But what he did do, in my opinion, was slow down and start taking it easy as he was walking into the end zone, friggin' nobody was going to hit him, and he got his ass handed to him. And he's got to really start protecting himself because you're the MVP in this league. You're one of the big faces in the league. Defensive players are going to be gunning for you. So I think Cam needs to really, and I think that the Panthers on a whole need to really start rearranging their game plan and that offense to protect them a little bit better. But, obviously, nobody wants to see Derek Anderson come out there on Monday night.
Yeah, and this is just a little scary because of the concussion worries that he had coming out of week 1 after he was facing Denver and took all those hits there too. So, with the kind of run or quarterback he is, he runs the ball a lot, taking a lot of hits. He really does have to be careful. And I honestly would be surprised if he ended up playing. I think they would be smarter to hold him out for a week just because of all the stuff that's been going on with him lately. But they probably won't end up doing that. But just with everything that's been going on, all the hits, I would probably sit him out for a game.
Who are they playing?
Tampa Bay.
Sit him out. Tampa Bay.
To your point, Derek Anderson might actually be better against Tampa Bay anyway. So, or at least he could be serviceable against Tampa Bay. So, all right, Trevor Siemian. It was originally reported he could miss a game or two with a sprained AC joint, and then it kind of came back that he's day to day, according to Kubiak. Steve, you're kind of plugged in there. What's the latest on Siemian?
Like you said, they're seeming like it's day to day. What they've said about the injury is that it's something that can be. It's just a pain tolerance type thing. They don't think that it's something that is going to get worse by playing with it. It is what it is. It's just more of a pain tolerance. It is in his non-throwing shoulder, so that is helpful. But earlier, like they said, he looks like he's going to be missing a game or two. I wouldn't be surprised if he missed at least this week. Paxton Lynch did come in and look all right, but of course that was for playing against a defense that wasn't able to game plan for him at all. But it's just it is what it is for him as well. He got hit pretty good. He got whipped to the ground, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up missing this week as well.
I heard that about the game planning from someone else too. Is Paxton Lynch that much different than Siemian, really?
No, I think there's more of a running aspect with him. You have to worry about, that's it. I think that's it. And then, but I don't even think he ended up doing that. They did get him doing some bootlegs and stuff like that, So that's probably a little more than Simeon was doing. But other than that, I don't think it was anything too crazy.
I think Tampa Bay's just bad, right? Aren't they just bad? They're just
The
bad at
Rams did
defense.
beat them, so they
The Rams are 3-1, buddy, and they beat the Cardinals yesterday.
I know. I saw
Yeah.
on replay actually.
All right, so let's move on here. Jamal Charles, I just wanted to bring this up because I feel like I like to get Sal going on things. And he was limited to 2 carries, 11 snaps overall. So Spencer Ware had his share of the day again. But I do think it's interesting. I mean, he was there. He said he felt great. He said he was 100% afterwards. So I think it's a big step towards the timeshare that's coming.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a timeshare. And I was telling a lot of people yesterday, and hopefully they listened, that he was not ready to start yesterday in fantasy. People were like, oh, Jamal Charles back there. It's not that simple. So he got the 2 carries, and if you started him, you definitely are miserable that you did that. It was my contention that they would bring him back yesterday, but they would not go full bore with him with the bye week coming up. I absolutely positively think that week 6 he will get the start, and he will get at least equal, if not dominate, not dominate, but have more carries than Spencer Ware. I think Spencer Ware will be better with the less carries. It seemed like those first couple of weeks when he got less touches, he produced better. As they gave him 20-plus touches the last couple of weeks, he didn't produce as well. So I think that Ware still stays, flex-worthy. I think I would wait in week 6 to see how it plays out. But, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Jamal Charles is going to play second fiddle to Spencer Ware the rest of the season. I just think it'll be closer to a timeshare than most people probably do.
I also find it necessary to bring up the fact that we had a little bet from this past weekend.
We did. We never put anything on it, so you name it, buddy. You name it. I'm just gonna give it to you.
The bet, cash? Obviously, for those of you who don't listen, the bet was Le'Veon Bell or Spencer Ware. I took the easy road with Le'Veon Bell, obviously, because Sal was very bullish on Spencer Ware, but. So I obviously we set no terms, so gentleman's bet, and I'll take the victory.
Nice. I lost another bet this week. I lost a bet to Cheesy. And,
so what is your profile picture now?
Today he's in love with Orleans Darkwa for some reason. So I have a very doofy looking picture of Orleans Darkwa as my profile. But for some reason, Cheesy thought he gets to change my profile pic every day for a week. So I decided to let him have fun, and I'll let you guys know each day I'm going to have a new profile picture. So should be interesting.
That'll be fun to watch. All right. Ryan Matthews, he is expected to be back week 5 against the Lions. Last time we saw him, he was miserable. And the other running backs in that offense played well. So what do you guys think, Steve? What's going to go on there? I know you put a little bit of stock into Smallwood. So what's going on in that backfield when he comes back against the Lions?
Yeah, well, it came out that he was dealing with an ankle injury, and that led to his very limited amount of touches the week before the bye. And so it'll be interesting to see what he looks like coming back from that. If he is healthy and able to play, he was getting some touches week 1 before the injury. But this has been something that plagues Ryan Matthews throughout his career. He's got those bones made of glass, always seems to be injured, so they probably aren't going to be leaning on him. He's not going to see 20 carries again in a game. I would be very surprised. And Darren Sproles, like you said, he's been a very integral part of the offense. And Wendell Smallwood, in that week where Ryan Matthews went down, he did have 17 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. So he probably will be worked in a little bit as well. People have been asking whether or not they should drop Ryan Matthews. Probably not yet, unless you're getting somebody that is absolutely a replacement level value for him. If Jordan Howard is somehow on the wire, he's someone that's looking at less of a timeshare right now. I could recommend dropping Matthews for him. But other than that, you probably want to hold him on your bench for another week and just see what happens.
So as a guy who has bones made of glass, are you trained to recognize them in others? Is that...
No, it's just the injury history. And I don't know how you know about my medical history, but I have broken a few bones, through the years.
I really thought you were going to go with as a guy who has small wood, but you went in a different direction.
I did. Yeah, I'm going to...
Also worried about how you might know that. So
right.
Sal, we should move on.
Let's just move on. Golden Tate. Jim Caldwell's supposedly saying that he is still an integral part of the team. He played 36 of 63 snaps. He has been terrible this year. I put this in here really just to ask you guys, is Golden Tate droppable at this point?
Whoa, it's like you're jumping the gun on my little game over here. But
Well, he wasn't on your list, so I thought
personally, I think that he's going to right himself a little bit. I mean, snap count is a big indicator that something's up there, and he did run a terrible route that caused Stafford an interception. If you were watching the game, I know you weren't, Kev, because you were out at the stadium, but he kept going straight on a route that he was going to cut in. He's supposed to cut in on, and Stafford lost it on him. But for me personally, and I'm saying really low, I'm buying Tate low right now if I get my hands on him, but I mean really low.
Yeah, 4 targets, 1 catch, 1 yard, and obviously, like you said, he had the big mistake that caused some angst amongst the team. I could see him coming back. I wouldn't drop him either. I mean, I think you probably invested a decent mid-round pick on him, so I would say you probably want to hang on to him for another couple weeks and just see what happens, because there's not, as we go through some of the waiver wire claims, there might be a couple guys you could put in there, but I'm guessing you're just going to want to stick it out for another week or so. All right, so Tevin Coleman may not suit up again in Denver. At least that was the original news. He has the sickle cell trait, similar to Ryan Clark, the defensive back for the Pittsburgh Steeler, who's now retired, who, I guess up in the Denver area, it can be an issue for guys with this trait. With the thinner blood, and it can cause some medical issues. So Ryan Clark sat out a couple of times from those games. It came out that Coleman may have to do that as well, and then it came out that he looks like he's going to play, but he could be on a snap count. So just something to keep in mind as you're setting your lineups this week. He's a guy I may stay away from a little bit, although, the matchup against Denver for the running game, that's kind of where they're susceptible. So I expect both those guys under normal conditions, I would expect both those guys to get some run.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Coleman's snaps were limited, like you said. Ryan Clark did end up playing in one game in Denver, and I believe they said they had to have his gallbladder and his spleen removed at some point after that because of the damage that was done while he was playing in that game. And then he ended up obviously not playing any of the games after that. So I would be surprised if they let Coleman go all out, and definitely, like you said, something to keep in mind. He's probably not starting for any of my teams this week.
So gallbladders and spleens are just like spare parts, right? We could just, they're out. Could keep going on without those. It's good.
Yeah, it's good to know.
I need to lose a little weight. I might get those just ripped right out.
I'm sure you know, guy.
Taken.
Yeah, elective surgery.
Yeah, right. You probably do know a guy.
Could get an appendix out too, I think. There's all kinds of things we don't even need in our body.
That's right. Unfortunately, you do need your brain, and Carson Palmer's is injured. He is in the concussion protocol. Looks like he suffered one this past weekend with a Thursday game, right? I believe they're Thursday this week, so it's going to be tough for him to get in the game. So definitely one to monitor. I know that Sal's season is riding on him in one spot, so mostly because of Steve. I think that's Steve's fault.
Don't blame me for that.
No, Steve did a very good job drafting that team. Just because Ryan Matthews might lose his job at this point, and Des Bryant is injured, and Carson Palmer's brain is all jiggly wiggly, and I can't seem to buy a win in that league. That's not Steve's fault.
I do remember after he drafted that team for you, telling him what a wonderful job he did. So the fact that you're not winning is surprising.
No, things change quickly around here. He did a terrible job. Terrible. Should be ashamed of himself.
Oh, I am.
All right. Any other news and notes before we move on to the game reviews here? No?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, without further ado, we're going to let Steve actually do a little work around here and go through these games. What do you got, Steve?
Alrighty, we are going to start off with the London Jaguars winning 30-27 over the Indianapolis Colts. For the Colts, you get a touchdown from each of their two wide receivers, T.Y. Hilton and Philip Dorsett, but otherwise nothing really crazy there. Andrew Luck finishes with a solid day, 27 for 42 with 234 and 2 touchdowns and an interception. Frank Gore, the eternal running back, he has 95 all-purpose yards and 1 touchdown. And then for the Jaguars, same things with their receivers. Each of them have a touchdown to salvage an otherwise really lackluster day. Blake Bortles looked absolutely terrible, but he scored a bunch of fantasy points. He went 19 for 33 for 207 and 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing. And then the running back for the Jaguars this week was TJ Yeldon. He had 71 yards on 14 carries and added 48 yards on 4 catches, but he failed to get into the end zone. So we will start with you, Kev. What is your biggest takeaway from this game?
I'll tell you, I actually did watch this game because we tailgate fairly early for our Patriots game, so we watched this game in the parking lot. Look, there's one thing that stood out to me, and I know he didn't have the greatest numbers, but Allen Robinson is good at football. He just runs some crisp routes. That touchdown catch that he made, where he just kind of slid across the goal line to make the catch and then sneak in. No, actually, I'm confusing that with someone else. But Allen Robinson does run some good routes. He looks good, 5 for 55 with a touchdown. So I don't know. He was pretty good. I thought that Yeldon ran pretty well in this game. I thought that he looked decisive. He ran hard. I didn't see a whole lot of Chris Ivory. So that's interesting to me that I don't know if they're still working him in slowly. I don't know if they mentioned that, but those are the 2 things on the Jaguars side that I thought was pretty interesting. For the Colts, I think I sent you guys a message as I was at the game. Andrew Luck's one of the most frustrating quarterbacks to own for me because you draft him early and you have to expect points out of him because of where you draft him. And as a result, that the first half of that game was terrible. He was brutal. And I know now, a lot of it's not his fault. His offensive line is absolutely horrendous. None of his receivers really look that good, with the exception of T.Y. Hilton, who even him, he's getting double covered. I just thought overall he really doesn't have much to work with right now, and it shows. And he's getting killed because he has no time to throw, and it's tough. So, but he, at the end of the day, I guess he came away with a good day with the 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. So overall, fantasy-wise, he was all right, but where you're drafting a guy like that, you really expect more.
Yeah, he ended up with, I believe, just between 17 or 18 points. So he salvaged the day, but it always seems to be in the fourth quarter that he ends up making it worth it. Sal, you see anything from this one?
No, my thing was really more the protection on the Colts side. It's just terrible, and I picked Andrew Luck to be my number 1 overall fantasy quarterback this year. And there's no chance he could become that because he's just running for his life constantly. And when he's getting caught, he's getting injured. It's nerve-wracking owning him and watching it every single weekend.
It is very, very scary. All right, well, moving on then, we've got the Houston Texans over the Tennessee Titans, 27-20. For the Titans, you have DeMarco Murray continues to have his surprising year with 109 total yards and 2 more touchdowns on Sunday. Delaney Walker, he was a huge letdown in his return, only 2 catches for 34 yards. Marcus Mariota, he did not look good at all. He completed only 12 passes on 28 attempts for 192 yards, no touchdowns, and one of the worst interceptions I've seen this year. If you watch this game, he looked absolutely terrible, and because of that, his receivers didn't do much of anything. And then on the Texans side, you had Lamar Miller, another productive day for him, 108 all-purpose yards, but yet again failed to reach the end zone for the 4th week in a row. You had the ghost of DeAndre Hopkins showed up, and he only caught 1 ball for 4 targets. That was brutal to watch. Will Fuller had the huge day. He had 7 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown, also returned a punt for a touchdown. And then you had Brock Osweiler looking mediocre yet again. He has 25 for 37, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So, Sal, what do you got taken away from this game?
DeMarco Murray is a stud running back again, and DeMarco Murray's for real. And I would not doubt him, and I would not try to trade him, which I think a lot of people were trying to do, and I'd be fully confident in him. Outside of that, Marcus Mariota continues to be a fantasy letdown. I've said already that he should not be owned in any format. He's not even really a streaming possibility at this point. I don't see anything good that comes out of him from a fantasy standpoint. Over on Houston, yeah, I mean, you brought up Fuller. Fuller's a guy who I think when he had that one not-so-good game, people were ready to bail on him. This guy's a legitimate wide receiver, too, and he's getting more looks, and he's more successful than DeAndre Hopkins right now. So he's another guy I'm not looking to move at all. Hold on to him.
All right,
Yeah,
Kev, what are you seeing?
Just real quickly on Fuller, nine targets, 7 catches, which is for me the biggest knock on Fuller coming out of college this year was his hands. He had a terrible catch rate in college, and he's catching more balls that are thrown to him in the pros, which is impressive. So I tend to agree with you there, Sal. Definitely something to watch there. And for me, it's just Lamar Miller's still a disappointment as far as the Houston rushing game or the rushing game in general. I mean, he's not really getting a lot of good looks, and just overall the production. I know he had 82 yards in this one. It's just not what you want out of Lamar Miller, who I think was drafted top 5 for a lot of people. So that's what I see.
Yeah, he's got to get in the end zone. You got to raise that touchdown production. All right, so we will move on to the Falcons, 48 over the Panthers, 33. For the Panthers, the big news from this game, like we talked about, was Cam Newton leaving after suffering his concussion. So you'll want to keep an eye on that. Kelvin Benjamin gets a touchdown to salvage an otherwise slow day. Greg Olsen has a nice day with 76 yards and a touchdown, continues to be one of the best fantasy tight ends in the game. The run game has looked absolutely awful for the last 2 weeks. So until further notice, Cameron Artis-Payne and Fozzie Wazzie Whitaker, those guys are, you got to be very, very careful about starting them. For the Falcons, Julio Jones, 12 catches for 300 yards and a touchdown. Matt Ryan continues to set the league on fire. He has over 500 passing yards with 4 touchdowns and an interception. And then Devontae Freeman scores another touchdown, and Tevin Coleman fell back to earth this week. So, Kev, what did you take away from this one?
I mean, how do you take anything else away besides Julio Jones? Is unfreaking believable. 12 catches, 300 yards on 15 targets with a touchdown. It's amazing. Real quickly, though, I do think it's interesting that Tevin Coleman, we talked about him a little bit, Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman still being used pretty much in the same exact way. I obviously didn't watch every snap of this game, but I think it's interesting that they're being used exactly the same. Neither of them is the passing down back. Neither of them is the goal line back. Neither of them has a special role. It's one offense, and these guys interchange. And to me, that makes them both valuable going forward.
Yeah, I think coaching staff has been pretty clear about that. They're going to remain equal, and I agree with you. They're both. I think Freeman remains a little bit more valuable. He really does look like the player he was last year when given the opportunity. So I have him ranked a little bit higher than Coleman at this point. And, I enjoyed having Julio. Somehow I managed to murder Steve with Julio and Falafel. But in the Scott Fishbowl with Julio, I'm going to lose somehow, which I might be the only person in creation doing that this week.
Not true. I've got Julio and Melvin Gordon on a team. I'm going to lose.
Oh,
if Julio was good, he would have had more than one touchdown. So.
It's true.
That is a fair point. That is a fair point. All right, moving on. We've got the Raiders 28 over the Ravens 27.
Woohoo!
For the Raiders, Derek Carr, he had an odd day. Threw for less than 200 yards, but he did have 4 touchdowns. 3 of those touchdowns went to Michael Crabtree on 88 yards and 7 catches. Again, this season, he's proving to be the more productive fantasy wide receiver. Latavius Murray continues his streak of getting less and less touches each week. This week he only had 10 and only got 24 yards out of them. And then Amari Cooper and Clive Walford, both of them were held to low-scoring games. For the Ravens, the return of Steve Smith. He goes off for 8 catches and 111 yards and a score. The Ravens' backfield had Justin Forsett was a healthy scratch, and Terrence West started in his place and had a good day, 113 yards rushing and a touchdown. You do have Kenneth Dixon coming back next week, so you'll have to see what goes on there. Joe Flacco had a pretty nice day, almost 300 yards passing and 1 touchdown through the air and rushing for another one. So those who took the chance streaming him were rewarded. Sal, what did you see in this game that you liked?
Yeah, I think the Latavius Murray thing is a big deal. It's something I had mentioned previously that based on his touchdowns earlier, he remained relevant as a running back play, you should try to move him. If you didn't, I think you're running out of time. Maybe you get somebody who still believes in him. But the only thing I would say that might benefit him is that Washington fumbled in a big spot and almost cost them the game. So maybe they're concerned about being young and not having great hands. The other thing is I know they gave up 27 points to Raiders, but the defense has played better the last 2 weeks. And when they needed to step up and get a stop, they did. So that defense may be shaping up better than it looked the first couple of weeks and might not be the doormat that we once thought it was. No, I hope nobody took the chance on Joe Flacco because it's just garbage. Don't ever play him in fantasy, ever. I warn you. And yeah, Steve Smith helped me win some money in DFS this week, so thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, Joe Flacco threw for 52 times and still didn't break 300 yards, and he had the one touchdown. He's just one. I think we talked about him before. He's just such an annoying fantasy quarterback because he rushed for a touchdown here that somehow made his day better, but I don't know. He's terrible.
He is terrible. That's the takeaway from that game. Joe Flacco is terrible.
That's about it.
All right. Moving on, you've got Washington 31 over Cleveland 20. The Browns did not secure that first win like Sal thought they would. For Washington, Jordan Reed is back. He had 9 catches for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. That helped Kirk Cousins to a solid fantasy day. He has a 75% completion percentage. Only 183 yards, but he did have 3 touchdowns and an interception. Matt Jones has a nice day, 138 total yards and a touchdown. He is starting to look like a solid running back too every week. And then for Cleveland, the theme of the day was touchdowns, salvaging otherwise poor days. And you had another one here with Terrell Pryor. He gets the touchdown to go along with his 46 yards receiving. And then you have Isaiah Crowell, the Crow. He goes off again for 112 yards on only 15 carries, and he gets another touchdown. So, Kev, what did you see in this one?
Look, Kirk Cousins had 3 touchdowns, so I guess his day was all right, but 21 of 27 for 183 yards. I get that it really doesn't take much to beat the Browns, but can you do a little better than that? I don't think Kirk Cousins is that good of a quarterback. I will continue to say this. I do not expect good fantasy days from him on days when he plays legitimate teams, not college football teams like the Browns. And for me, Isaiah Crowell continues to surprise me. He is absolutely a relevant fantasy starter. He should be in your lineups every week. We got lots of questions leading up to the games this weekend about Isaiah Crowell, and he was always on lists of people who were far worse than him and put up much less numbers. So keep him in your lineup. He's definitely an RB2 every week. And some weeks he may end up being an RB1. So.
Yeah, for me, the biggest takeaway here is, and I was a guy who wasn't believing yet based off the one game, is looks like Terrell Pryor is going to remain a reliable player on a weekly basis. He didn't have quite the explosive game he had last week, but he was able to get a touchdown. Outside of that, I was one who doubted Crowell a little bit, and I still might consider selling high on him right now. Because I don't know that they sustain it all year, but he was a good play. It seems to be his job and his job to lose at this point. Outside of that, not much that I could take away from this game other than I almost called that win for the Browns. It was closer than I think everybody thought.
And your point on Terrell Pryor, especially with Josh Gordon not going to be coming back to the Browns at all this season, that definitely will lead to some more production for him and some more opportunities. So then we move on to the Seahawks over the New York Jets, 27-17. For the Seahawks, it seems like the more hurt that he is, the better he plays. Russell Wilson goes off for 309 yards passing with 3 touchdowns on the road. Did not seem to be bothered by the knee or the ankle. Christine Michael had a good day against the tough Jets front 7. He had 90 total yards and a touchdown. And then Jimmy Graham, he has another great game, 6 catches for 113 yards. And he was the pass catcher to own for the Seahawks this week as Doug Baldwin and the other guys really just had a quiet day. For the Jets, he had Brandon Marshall, paid back the owners who'd kept the faith in him. He had 89 yards with a touchdown. Ryan Fitzpatrick throws another 3 interceptions to go along with that 1 touchdown to Marshall and 261 yards. And then in Eric Decker's absence, you saw Quincy Enunwa with 6 catches and 60 yards. So, Sal, what are you taking away from this game?
So one of the gentlemen who hangs in our falafel chat, his name is Clog Toilets. I don't know if he's a plumber or what he does for a living, but I advised him to start Russell Wilson in this game. He wasn't sure. I told him, do it. The Jets can be thrown on. He did it, and he actually praised me and told me he loved me. He used those actual words and said, I love you. So I love you too, buddy. Congratulations on your victory. And start. This is not the New York Jets of 2 years ago. This is not Darrelle Revis of 2 years ago. You start people in the passing game against this team because they can absolutely be thrown on. Jimmy Graham is back. A couple weeks ago, I was jumping on that bandwagon and grabbing him wherever I can. And if you grabbed him while I'm still available, you're very happy right now because he looks like the legit tight end 1 that he always was. And, it's maybe we see Geno Smith soon because this is getting pretty goddamn embarrassing here in New York to watch Fitzpatrick go out there and be just awful. There's really no explanation other than awful. And it looks like the Jets will be missing Eric Decker big time.
Yeah, for me, really quickly, I think to Sal's point about the Jets defense and being able to throw on them, I'm looking through the Seattle receiving and looking at the long catches for each of these receivers. Jimmy Graham, long of 27. Doug Baldwin, long of 38. Tanner McAvoy, long of 42. Paul Richardson, long of 27. So they're giving up big chunks, which is not what you used to see out of them. So I definitely think you're starting your receivers, particularly your speedsters and your long reception guys against them. And the other thing that I thought was interesting is where did Matt Forte go, Steve?
Well, he was bound to have a little bit of a letdown here or there, and he absolutely vanished and killed me in just about every league I've got him in. So,
which is every league.
He'll be back. He will be back. Don't you worry about that.
McElroy's a New Jersey boy too, so good for him. He came home and got that big touchdown. I think that's his first ever catch in the NFL. So, pretty nice.
Pretty nice. All right, now the game everyone's been waiting for. The Buffalo Bills 16 over the New England Patriots 0. For the Bills, you have LaShawn.
Do we really?
Huh? Did I emphasize
Do we really have to talk about this?
Yeah, we do.
All right.
It's for the listeners.
Where are the trumpets? I thought there were going to be trumpets.
I'll do it for the people.
All right. So for the Bills, we had LaShawn McCoy leads the way with another good game, 108 total yards and a touchdown. With no Sammy Watkins there for the next 8 weeks, the offense will definitely be going through him and him alone. Tyrod Taylor has a nice afternoon, 27 for 39, 246 yards, and then that touchdown pass to LaShawn McCoy. And then Robert Woods, he has a solid day, catching 7 balls for 89 yards, taking that place of Watkins as the wide receiver 1. For the Patriots, all I got to say is, do you think everyone there is happy that Tom Brady will be back? There's nothing good to talk about for the Patriots in this game. It is all about on to Cleveland. They are on to Cleveland. So, Kev, what do you want to say about this one?
Martellus Bennett had a good game. He was all right. 5 catches for 109 yards there. I will say that, if I can take a positive away, it was that at least Bennett did look pretty good. Gronk did a lot of blocking. He only ran 13 routes, but he was out there on a lot of plays. So with Brady coming back, it looks like Gronk actually will be healthy, and you still have that twin tight end threat that you were excited to see at the beginning of the season. I think it was interesting. Look, Shady McCoy is just flat out good at football. He is the only thing that's going to stop him this year, as you said, Steve, is injury, because this offense is going to completely and totally run around him and through him. And then on the other side, again, LeGarrette Blount, he came back to earth a little bit. I thought they'd lean on him a little more. He still only got 13 carries. I think the game flow kind of dictated that a little bit, but for me, I was, if you're a LeGarrette Blount owner, and I think we're going to talk about him a little later, but he was a guy that I was hoping would have one more big game so you could get some good value in a trade for him. I think this hurt that a little bit, but as I said, we'll talk about him a little bit later.
I'll tell you who I'm happiest for yesterday, and that's the beer vendors at at Gillette Stadium because I'm sure there was plenty of suds flowing watching that game. But in all honesty, listen, the Patriots are. I'll be careful saying class organization because I know people like to jump on them, and it's just when people win and people are successful, people find ways to hate them. They showed that they're a class organization in winning the first 3 games without Tom Brady. They showed that they can find different ways to win. And I never thought they could go 4-0. So winning that Arizona game, in my opinion, gave them some house money to play with. Going 3-1, if Patriot fans said, if you asked them 4 weeks ago, would you be happy with 3-1? You would have taken it. I know you want 4-0, Kevin, but you got to admit you would have taken 3-1 without Brady. Now they get Brady back. Go ahead.
The thing that a lot of people said that to me after the game already, and the one thing about that is you're absolutely right. I would have taken 3-1, but when you got to 3-0 and you saw the Bills on the schedule, there's no way I thought that 4-0 wasn't happening.
But it's never easy, those divisional games, and every once in a while the Pats will come out and thump one of them. But for the most part, those teams get up for the Pats and they play them tough. But Brady comes back now, and I'm looking at the schedule. If they lose one the rest of the way, I'd say that that's about it. But yeah, there's really not much else to take away from the game for me. It's a fluky type of thing that happened, and now Rex Ryan gets to live a little longer.
All right, then we will move on. We've got the Chicago Bears over the Detroit Lions, 17-14. For the Bears, Jordan Howard got his first NFL start and did not fail to impress. He totaled 132 yards, 111 of them on the ground, and just looked very comfortable overall. You had Brian Hoyer, looked pretty solid, throwing for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then you've got Alshon Jeffrey for the 4th straight game, who's failed to do just about anything. We've all touted him as a top 5 fantasy wide receiver when he's been healthy. Well, he's been healthy for 4 weeks now, which is almost a record, it seems. And he has just not done anything for the
Healthy-ish.
Yeah, healthy-ish, that's true. But he's played every game. And then for the Lions, an ugly game for them. Not quite as ugly as the Patriots, but damn, it was pretty ugly. Matthew Stafford looked awful. He had 213 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks. The run game was ugly. At Marvin Jones, he had 74 yards total. Golden Tate, we talked about him already. So for the Lions, it was a very, very forgettable game for them. Sal, anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, the guy I'm going to talk, I might as well bring him up now, right? It's going to be my waiver wire pickup later, and that's Eddie Royal. Eddie Royal has, generally come on year after year and had a good first week and kind of faded as he's gone on, but he's had his best week of all in week 4. So week 1, 13.7 points. Week 2, 13.2 points. Had a down week against Dallas. But this week he came out for 20.6. So this is a guy that I'm definitely looking to add. Kevin White looks to have a little bit of an ankle injury and probably a little bit more serious than they're letting on to right now from what I'm understanding. So I know I'm jumping the gun on a waiver wire, but this is something I definitely noticed in this game, so I figured I'd bring it up now. Is a guy I'm absolutely looking to add. He's owned in 9% of ESPN leagues, which is just a little bit crazy to me. And some moron on this podcast dropped him this past week.
Oh, whatever. I dropped him for a running back.
Oh,
Wow. Ouch.
Ouch, indeed.
Just for me, real quick, I didn't really see too many highlights from this game because apparently there weren't any. Eddie Royal does look like a guy you're going to want going forward, particularly with the health of both Kevin White and Alshon Jeffrey being in question. Looks like both of those guys are going to be soft tissue issue type guys. Marvin Jones, even though they had a bad game, it looked like he still had a pretty decent day. Didn't get in the end zone, but 5 for 74. He's just further solidifying himself as the number 1 there on an offense that throws a lot.
All right. And we will move into the afternoon games. First up, you've got the Denver Broncos 27 over the Tampa Bay Bucks, who only scored 7 points against that great defense. For the Broncos, the big news was we talked about already at the beginning with Trevor Siemian getting hurt and then Paxton Lynch coming in and having a pretty nice afternoon. And then you have Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Both of these guys had solid days for the second week in a row. Both of them go over 85 yards receiving each, and each of them get a touchdown. And then you have C.J. Anderson, who got a touchdown to help out his otherwise pretty lackluster day. And then on the Bucs side, Jameis Winston, he did not look good at all. Less than 200 yards passing, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but did have a rushing touchdown. There was a definite trickle-down effect here for all the other playmakers on the Bucs. They were all relatively useless. And Mike Evans, he had 5 catches for 59 yards. But other than that, there wasn't much to speak of for the Buccaneers. Kev, what do you got from this one?
Yeah, interesting to me that C.J. Anderson was held in check as much as he was. Obviously, he gets the touchdown, but 2.6 yards per carry is not something you want to see. Devontae Booker ate into his carries with 7. So it looks like they gave him a chance. And just overall for the Broncos, I mean, the wide receivers had, both Thomas and Sanders had a pretty good day, but it looks like they really only put up 320 something yards of total offense against a defense that really hasn't played very well. So I would have expected more out of them. Obviously, when your quarterback goes down, you sort of have to take things in stride. So, and Jameis Winston just looks like a turnover machine. A lot of touchdowns so far this year, and then he didn't get those in this game, and that kind of makes him look even worse. But a lot of turnovers, hard to trust. I was way off on Charles Sims today, for this week as well. I thought he was going to have a great game. I thought they were going to run the ball a lot with him, and I thought they were going to throw, be able to throw a little bit on, with him out of the backfield, given how much Denver shuts down the receivers. So I was way off on that, and I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, I think Jacquizz Rodgers and his couple of touches actually looked better than Sims when he carried the ball. Here's what I'll tell you: if you believe in off again, on again performances like Steve's San Francisco Giants, coming up every other year and winning a World Series.
Oh, we're getting ready to start again.
Jameis Winston had a 30-point game in week 1, and he pooped the bed in week 2. He had a 30-point game in week 3 and pooped the bed in week 4. So it tells me get him in your lineup next game. 30 points. That's how it works, right? He's guaranteed a 30-point game.
Guaranteed.
Wow, you heard it here.
Yeah, he's playing. Who's playing? The Panthers? Did you see they just gave him 500? What? Get him in. 500 yards to Matt Ryan.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely not benching him next week. That's for sure.
Yeah, get your Winstons ready.
All right, moving on. We've got the Los Angeles Rams over the Arizona Cardinals, 17-13. The Rams are 3-1 and currently in first place in the NFC West, and that is all with Todd Gurley sucking as much as he has through these first 4 weeks. And he had 82 total yards. He had 5 catches, but he's just not what you expected when you drafted him in the top 5 picks of this year's draft. And then you've got Case Keenum, almost throws for 300 yards and gets 2 touchdowns. Brian Quick caught both of them, but I'm telling you right now, do not waste a waiver pick on that guy. For the Cardinals, we talked about Carson Palmer and his concussion. So you want to look and pay attention to that. And then you've got Michael Floyd. He catches the touchdown pass. And David Johnson has 124 yards, continues to look really good for the Cardinals. John Brown also blows up for 10 catches and 144 yards. So, Sal, what do you see in this one?
I'm telling people in a deeper league to ignore Steve and look at Brian Quick. I mean, in a deeper league, I know he had 2 catches each of the last weeks, but he had 3 touchdowns on those 2 catches. So those percentages are good to me. The guy's fast. I don't want to say quick. And listen, if it's working, he's worth a look. I mean, people struggling in those deeper leagues.
I disagree with you, and only for the fact that
very big, very shocking.
Yeah, listen, here's the deal. He's so boom or bust. When are you going to put him in your lineup unless you absolutely have no one else? With injuries, if you're depleted, yeah, in a deeper league, maybe.
So we're playing falafel, and we all see that this is happening right now to guys in falafel, specifically more with running backs than with wide receivers.
More running backs. There's lots of guys available before Brian Quick that I'm.
So there's a flex position in our league with bye weeks coming up. Guys are struggling. They're not going to have enough running backs to put in flex, right? So there's a possibility that in 16-plus team leagues that he's worth looking at. If the guy's if he goes out and gets another 2 catches this week and that's a touchdown, you're going to still ignore it?
Yeah, but if he has 1 catch and for 15 yards and no touchdown,
that wasn't the question. Don't evade the question or ask another question. If he has 2 catches this week and one of them is a touchdown, are you going to ignore it?
Yes.
You are a jackass, sir.
I'm going to ignore it because I know that the game after that, it's more likely than not that he's going to have one catch, 15 yards, no touchdown, and I'm going to sit him in my lineup and be angry about it.
I'm just trying to get you to add him so I can get the good players.
Well, you have waiver priority, so.
All right, we are going to move on. We've got the New Orleans Saints 35 over the San Diego Chargers 34. For the Saints, Mark Ingram 108 total yards, catches 6 of 7 targets and gets a touchdown. Brandon Cooks and Willie Snead combined for 4 catches and 54 yards. Pretty ugly. Mike Thomas has a good game for the second week in a row. Drew Brees looks like, I guess, what we can come to expect whenever he leaves New Orleans. He had a pretty average day, just over 200 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. For the Chargers, we had epic meltdown round 3. They have had the lead in all 4 of their games in the fourth quarter and are now 1-3. Phillip Rivers has a good game, though, over 300 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, but does have a costly interception in the fourth quarter. Melvin Gordon gets into the end zone 2 more times, but his rushing line was 19 carries for 36 yards. Yikes. And then Hunter Henry, the new best tight end in the NFL, gets a touchdown this week as well. Kev, what do you see in this game in San Diego?
Yeah, 2 things for me. First of all, it was nice to see Mark Ingram really start to get involved in the passing game again. I know that Breeze didn't have a great day, but to see Ingram go over 100 yards, almost half of that with the passing game, he gets in the end zone. I think that was, that's what you drafted Mark Ingram as high as you did for, because last year he was involved in the passing game. So it was good to see him really get involved there. I think that's a good sign going forward. For me, on San Diego side, Dontrell Inman, 7 receptions, 120 yards and a touchdown, just further says to me that there is no way you can predict who is going to pop for San Diego receiving corps. So makes them tough to start any of those guys. Obviously, I think Benjamin's still the guy you want the most, but Inman's going to have games from time to time. I think Tyrell Williams is going to have games from time to time. I do like seeing Hunter Henry have a big day. With Gates on the shelf, it makes him a reliable fantasy starter.
Yeah, you used Hunter Henry against me in that Friday league, and I didn't even know you had him in there. Then when I seen it, I was like, son of a... But I agree with you wholeheartedly about the Charger wide receivers. I think people 2 weeks ago decided these guys are all legitimate wide receiver 2s, and they were talking about trading other more valuable pieces because I got Tyrell Williams now and Travis Benjamin, and you've really got to be careful of overreacting on one game. It definitely looks like it's going to be spread out there. When Gates comes back, they might go with 2 tight ends. They might both be involved. There's a lot of mouths to feed. They keep sticking McCluster on the field, which drives me nuts as a Gordon owner. But Gordon, he's obviously the lead dog there. I think what's good to see, to your point about Ingram, is Cadet put up a goose egg. So it looks like it's becoming 100% Ingram involved, which is good because I have a lot of stock.
All right, we move on to the final afternoon game. We've got the Cowboys over the 49ers, 24-17. For the Cowboys, Zeke Elliott has his coming out party, 157 total yards and a touchdown. Dak Prescott continues to look really good, almost going for 250 yards with 2 more touchdowns. Still has not thrown an interception on the season. Bryce Butler gets his first touchdown, and Beasley and Witten, who we thought were going to be the ones to step up in Des Bryant's absence, they were relatively quiet. For the 49ers, Carlos Hyde scores another touchdown on Sunday, giving him a solid afternoon to go along with 79 yards. And then Blaine Gabbert attempts just 23 passes in this game, throws for less than 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, does not seem to be moving the offense at all. All the pass catchers are suffering because of it, although Jeremy Curley did end up with 6 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. So, Sal, what are you seeing in here?
Yeah, regardless of what Curley did, this is another one of those situations where it's a different guy every week. Sometimes it's Torrey Smith, and sometimes it's Curley, and you can't trust them. So those are desperation plays. I think Zeke has shown the last couple of weeks that he's here, and he's a top 5 starting running back on a weekly basis. To Kevin's point that he made earlier in the week, I think it's a matter of time before we see Colin Kaepernick. I think Kaepernick forgot he was an NFL football player and got caught up in everything that was going on. He got a little scrawny, and then he decided, I got to work out and get back in there. So looks like he's getting in game shape, and I think it's only a matter of time before that happens, but still doesn't make me want to touch anybody in that San Francisco offense. Terrence Williams, he gets you excited like this every once in a while. He has good games. He gets touchdowns, and then when you start him, he doesn't do anything for your team or forgets to run out of bounds, which seems to be an epidemic with him.
I did start Terrence Williams in FLAFFL, so that at least I did get the benefit of this one touchdown, 44-yard game, so that's good. I think the other thing for me, Carlos Hyde continues to be productive and a valuable fantasy asset. I think I just think Chip Kelly's offense is going to make him worthwhile as an RB2 for probably the rest of the season. And if Kaepernick actually does take over, I think that his value will probably boost even more.
All right, and for the Sunday night game, the final game, since the Monday night game is going on while we're recording this, you've got the Steelers dominating the Kansas City Chiefs 43-14. For the Steelers, will this offense be able to be stopped by anybody? You had Big Ben going off for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, 2 of those going to Antonio Brown. And then also you have the return of Le'Veon Bell, saw him get 178 total yards. Then the touchdown was vultured by D'Angelo Williams. And then Jesse James even found the end zone there. And then you've got the Chiefs. This game got out of hand early, so the Chiefs weren't able to do what they do best, which is run the ball. Spencer Ware had a somewhat decent day, salvaged by a big late run. And then Travis Kelce also had his day saved with a late touchdown. So, Sal, what are you taking away from this Steelers-Chiefs game?
So first things first, yes, the Eagles stopped that Steelers offense the week earlier. So, yes, somebody can stop them.
It's not the same. Le'Veon Bell wasn't there.
Oh, poo-poo, ka-choo.
That's right.
Everybody last week was, D'Angelo Williams could do everything. But I'll be honest with you guys. I was at a fundraiser last night, and when I got home, it was the start of the second half, and it was 29-0. So I don't have a whole lot to take away from this game because the second half wasn't that interesting to me after that mess, other than maybe Sammy Coates looking like he's the best of the number 2 wide receivers in that offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I don't got a lot to take, so maybe Kevin has a better view. I don't know if he was tears wiped out of his eyes at this point last night.
I watched a little bit of this game. I was sad. I went to bed early. I cried. But I did notice that Le'Veon Bell is still very good at football. And I did also notice that so is Antonio Brown. He really is ridiculous, the routes that he runs. I think he was the one that I was thinking of earlier with his goal line, shadowing the goal line across and making a catch. But look, this offense is you're right. Sal, they did get shut down by the Eagles, but there aren't many teams that are going to shut them down. And most weeks you're going to see numbers that I think similar to this. Roethlisberger throws for 5 touchdowns. There was a reason that I was as high on him in the beginning of the season, and that games like this are why. I don't think it's going to happen every week, but there are going to be a lot of these weeks, and hopefully you play your cards right and get them in when they can. On this Kansas City side of the ball, there's really not much to say. We talked about the Spencer Ware, Jamal Charles issue. That's pretty much all you're looking at in this from this offense. To be quite honest with you, I think Jeremy Maclin's a good wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. But he's going to have games like this where he gets 78 yards and no touchdowns. It's going to happen quite regularly. So probably half the time. So, it is what it is. I think that's about it.
That's about it. That's it for the game reviews. We did them all. We got them.
Wow.
All.
Nice job, Steve. I'm really impressed with your rundown there. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that because really I wanted to just kind of coast today.
That's cool.
And having said that, we're going to get to Sal's little game here that we're letting him do. Hopefully this will go well. What do you got, Sal?
First, not impressed, Steve. Second,
thank you.
Yeah, so I figured it's 4 weeks in, and we're starting to see some track records with some of these guys. And I want to run through a couple of guys that I'm going to ask you if you believe in them and if they're worth buying into, and then a couple of guys that would you move on from. So, Kev, let's start with you. Carson Wentz, he was on a bye this week, but in the first 3 weeks, he was averaging 17.6 points per game. That put him at 10th overall in quarterbacks and points per game. He's completed 65% of his passes, 769 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Would you add Carson Wentz as a weekly fantasy option to your team?
Weekly, I would say, like, he's not an automatic start. I mean, but would I add him? Yeah, I think I would add him as a bye week fill-in, or if you're a streaming quarterbacks and you want to play good matchups. Look, this is a guy that throughout his 4 years in college threw for 65%, almost 65% of his passes, completed almost 65% of his passes, had just won everything that you could possibly win. Now, granted, he wasn't in NCAA, but I mean, they won what? He won 4 championships, I believe. The guy was incredible in college. He's a smart quarterback. He looks like he's poised. He has no fear. He throws the ball very well. He's very accurate, and it seems like the guys are playing for him. He's going to put up points, and they have a pretty decent offense built around him, right? The offensive line is pretty good. I think losing Lane Johnson, if the suspension, once that kicks in, will hurt them from a protection standpoint, and that might be something to watch. But with all the various weapons, Jordan Matthews looks like he's putting it all together this season. I would play him. Like I said, not every week, but he's certainly a guy you can start, I think, from time to time.
I would say just real quick, look at his schedule. The defenses that he's played aren't necessarily too scary. He played Cleveland, Chicago, and Pittsburgh in those 3 games. So I'd be a little hesitant, but he's definitely worth the speculation, and you could definitely play the matchups with him.
All right, Steve. So Kev brought him up a little bit earlier, so I'll ask you about LeGarrette Blount. He's averaging 14.77 points a week. He's got 352 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. Do you believe that this continues with Brady coming back, or is this a sell high guy?
Oh, definitely. It was a sell high guy last week. Unfortunately, now you're probably not going to get much for him, so you're going to have to wait for him to have one of these games. They're going to be much fewer and further between with Tom Brady back, but he will have that one game randomly where he rushes for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that if you can find a buyer for him right now, now is the time to move him. That offense is going to be pass heavy a lot, and so I'm selling him where I can for sure.
All right, and Kev, swinging over to you on wide receiver. Guy who's playing right now, Stephon Diggs. Coming into tonight, he was averaging 16.13 points per game. His targets were 9, 11, and 7 over the first 3 games. He did go down last week to 4 for 40, but he had 2 100-yard games, including a 9 for 187 and a touchdown in week 2. He's got somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 catches for 40-something yards tonight, I believe. Is this a guy, do you think, can continue performing at a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season?
Wide receiver 2, I would say yes. I think people are going a little crazy with him and thinking he's going to be a wide receiver 1 after his huge game. I do think he can be a wide receiver 2, though. I think the offense, we talked about it a little bit before we got on the air. It looks better than I thought it would with Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford seems to be playing a little better than I expected. The tight end, Kyle Rudolph, looks good, and that's kind of opening things up. So Diggs definitely looks good. And without Adrian Peterson, they're throwing. So, yeah, I think he can be a wide receiver 2 the rest of the year.
Very good. And so, Steve, the last guy I'm asking if you're believing in tonight, Cameron Brate. Austin Seferian-Jenkins was let go, and in the last 2 weeks, it looks like Brate has got the opportunity to take center stage. He's seen 10 and 8 targets in each one of those games. He had a 2-touchdown game last week, and he had 5 for 67 yesterday. Is this a guy you're buying into and you believe could be a weekly starter in your lineup?
I think he's right on that cusp, and if these targets remain, then definitely he's right on that back end of the tight end 1 position. You know how much Tampa Bay has been throwing the ball so far. Their defense looks absolutely terrible, so they're probably going to have to continue throwing the ball, although it seems like Dirk Cutter wants to ease back and lower the amount of attempts that Jameis Winston is having. But, I mean, for the passing options in that defense, you look at Tampa Bay's schedule going forward. They don't play a tough defense until week 11 at Kansas City, and then followed by Seattle in week 12. Other than that, they've got one of the easier looking schedules for defenses that I could imagine. So I think that getting some, if you can get Mike Evans for cheap, any of these offensive players on this team, I think that they're going to be scoring a ton of points coming up. And I think Cameron Brate definitely has a chance to be a tight end 1 by the end of the season.
All right, so we're all done with that, and we're going to move on to my guys. I'm going to ask you if it's time to move on and get them off your roster. I'm going to go back to Steve because the second guy I want to specifically go to Kevin with. So, Steve, at running back, Derrick Henry was a guy people thought there was going to be a timeshare coming into the season. DeMarco Murray has been RB1 through 4 weeks and does not appear to be slowing down. So, in recent weeks, after getting some touches and actually some receptions and some looks in the first 2 weeks, Henry has seen 0 targets over the last 2 games, and in this past week, he got 3 carries for 9 yards, finishing with .9 in fantasy football. Is this a guy in a 10 to 12 team league? You know, in deeper leagues, obviously, you're going to keep him there. Is this a guy in a 12 team league you're ready to let go and maybe look for a little bit better weekly option?
Yeah, absolutely. With all the injuries that you've had to running back so far, unless you are a DeMarco Murray owner, Derrick Henry is not serving any purpose. He's not going to be any type of bye week fill, as you learned last week that when you had to start him, he's not getting the looks. And as long as DeMarco Murray is looking as good as he is, then he's not going to see any time on the field. We thought maybe Derrick Henry would get some more red zone rushes, but that definitely seems to be DeMarco Murray's job as well. So in a 10 to 12 team league, Derrick Henry definitely is droppable unless it is a dynasty type format and you have the bench space. You want to hold on to him, but other than that, definitely you can move on.
All right, Kevin. Here's a guy who you were not the only person high on, but it was a guy you definitely were looking forward to getting on your roster. I think you had him as a keeper in FLAFFL, and that's Tyler. Yeah, Tyler Lockett. He's averaging 4.22 fantasy points a game. These are his 4-game totals: 3 for 17, 4 for 99, 0 for 0, and 1 for 13. Is this a guy in a 10 to 12 team league you're comfortable letting go onto the waiver wire and getting the dreaded divorce from?
Personally, no, but I can't blame anyone that wants to. I can't because I've just invested in him. And you know, the other thing I will say is, look, he's only got 15 targets through 4 games. Like you said, the catch totals are not good. 8 catches, 129 yards, but he's supposedly dealing with a knee injury. They say he has a torn PCL. At least that's what reports are saying. So he's hobbled. I think that's seriously affecting what he does within this offense. And I personally would, even in the smaller leagues, the 10 and the 12 team leagues, I would hold on to him for another couple of weeks. They have a week 5 bye. So I think if you can get through the next couple of weeks, if you can keep him on your bench, I would do that just to see what happens when he comes out, see if he looks a little better, see if his legs, seem a little bit better and he's running better. And maybe Russell Wilson looks his way a little bit more. So maybe a couple more weeks on him for me. But I certainly can't blame you because he's been bad.
You don't feel the reemergence of Jimmy Graham takes a little bit more of a shot to his value?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't help. I mean, anytime targets are going somewhere else with Jimmy Graham playing the way he has, it's going to, he's going to look good. Wilson's going to look his way, I should say. So certainly eats into it. But, I mean, Lockett wasn't the main guy last year when he, towards the end of the season when he started putting up numbers. He doesn't have to be that primary focus. He just has to be able to run down the field and catch some longer passes. So.
All right, Steve Areno. The last guy I want to talk about is a guy who I drafted in one league and have already dropped. But let me get your opinion. Tight end Dwayne Allen. He came out in week 1 and put up 15.3 points, and it looked like this is finally his offense. He's going to find his way. And in the last 3 weeks, he's put up 3.5, 5, and 3. And then this weekend, we watched him drop not 1 but 2 big passes that could have one of them would have been for a first down on a 4th and 1 that would have kept the drive alive to possibly go on to tie the game up. Is this a guy with all the tight end depth you're comfortable with just letting go and moving on from?
Yeah, you just said it. With all the tight end depth that there seems to be, I definitely would not have any problem dropping Dwayne Allen. I actually own Jack Doyle somewhere. He's not been a terrible fantasy option, although he had a really bad week this week. And someone we just talked about, Cameron Brate. You can drop Dwayne Allen for Cameron Brate. I would do that in an instant. So definitely not holding on to Dwayne Allen. He's going to have that game where he scores a touchdown and he gets 80 yards, but you're like we've seen so far, the once every 4 weeks isn't consistent enough for me to want to hold on to him. So yeah, I'm dropping him and moving on where I can.
All right, guys. I think maybe we'll come back in 2 weeks and revisit. Maybe there's some more trends, some more guys, maybe some guys who came back from injuries, suspensions, and we can address this again. Until then, Mr. Kevin.
So those of you listening, if you like that segment, let us know. If you don't, definitely let us know because we love to give Sal crap. For now, we talked about the waiver wire really quickly with Sal. Sal mentioned to grab Zach Center. Steve, who do you got really quickly?
He said Eddie Royal.
Yes, I did mention earlier, to Kevin's point, I did mention I was going to switch to Zach Zenner, but I did go with Royal. But Zach Zenner is the guy. Zach Zenner is the guy I would add because of the Washington injury, and they're just going to need somebody to take carries there because Riddick will not hold up. Steve?
All right, this one is going to seem extremely obvious because he's been a hot name all throughout preseason, but on ESPN leagues, he's only 20% owned, and that is Kenneth Dixon. He is going to be the starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens within the next few weeks. I know Terrence West had a good week this week, but Kenneth Dixon was earning most of the first team work throughout the preseason before he hurt his knee. So I expect him to regain that job. So he is the guy that I am picking up and have already picked up in many of the leagues that I'm in.
All right, for me, it's Brian Hoyer. Look, he's a little bit of a speculation here right now because Cutler could come back, but I'm going to tell you right now, I think there's a chance that even when Cutler comes back, he may not get his job. Hoyer has looked pretty good. He's thrown for over 300 yards in both games that he started, and he's not a great quarterback, but Cutler's terrible. So I think, and in that offense with with Eddie Royal and with hopefully Alshon Jeffrey starting to get into form, hopefully he'll pick it up, and Hoyer's a good option there. So that about does it for us tonight as far as the content. So Steve, what about your finishing thought?
All right, I would just like to remind everybody one more time that next week we will be moving to a new schedule, releasing podcasts on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So your regularly scheduled podcast on Tuesday will be out on Monday, and then the bonus one will be out on Wednesday, and so on and so forth. Find us online at FLAFFL House on Twitter and on Instagram. You can like our page on Facebook, and then, of course, visit the website, flafflehouse.com, for all that daily fantasy content. Sal, what do you got?
I just want to apologize to anyone who I told to draft Odell Beckham Jr. as the number 1 overall fantasy player this year. I forgot to factor in that being a crybaby and being more focused on your attitude and not focused on being a team player would make you actually not perform well in fantasy football. And that's just a fact. It's become a spectacle now after a couple of weeks and going back to last year. Get your head straight. You got so much goddamn talent. Stop acting like a baby. Kevin.
An hour and 10 minutes. You almost held it in for the entire time. But no, I definitely agree with you on that, actually. So for me, I just want to remind everyone that we love reviews. So if you could submit a review wherever you download the podcast, we would certainly appreciate it. And until next time, I should say, Steve, hit the